I was fired because of something about the way I was conducting the Russia investigation was in some way putting pressure on him, in some way irritating him, and he decided to fire me because of that. I was honestly concerned that he might lie about the nature of our meeting, and so I thought it really important to document. That combination of things I'd never experienced before, but it led me to believe I got to write it down, and I got to write it down in a very detailed way. I was so stunned by the conversation that I just took it in. And the only thing I could think to say, because I was playing in my mind, because I could remember every word he said, I was playing in my mind, what should my response be? And that's why I very carefully chose the words. And look, I've seen the tweet about tapes. Lordy, I hope they're tapes. I remember saying, I agree he's a good guy, as a way of saying I'm not agreeing with what you just asked me to do. The president tweeted on Friday, after I got fired, that I better hope there's not tapes. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there might be corroboration for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel.
It is overwhelmingly clear that there have been and continue to be those in government who are actively attempting to undermine this administration with selective and illegal leaks of classified information and privileged communications. Mr. Comey has now admitted that he is one of these leakers.
This is Mark Taylor-Canfield, and this is the MTC Report. I'm a journalist and musician living in Seattle, and we have a story for you today about Comey's testimony before the Senate Intelligence Committee hearing, because this is a Watergate moment for the United States of America once again. By the way, I've written at the Huffington Post. I'm contributing editor for Democracy Watch News. I also have a blog at Daily Kos. And I'm a regular guest on the Jeff Santos Show, broadcasting nationally out of Boston. So, are we witnessing the collapse of a U.S. presidential administration? Some political observers say yes, including a former U.S. intelligence chief, Mr. Clapper.
I lived through Watergate. I was on active duty then in Air Force as a young officer, and it was a scary time. I have to say, though, that I think, compare the two, that Watergate pales, really, in my view, compared to what we're confronting now.
One week after Aslan called President Trump a, quote, piece of shit, quote, embarrassment to mankind on Twitter.
I was fired because of something about the way I was conducting the Russia investigation.
So, if there's one thing we know for sure, Trump will not go down without a fight. His attorney has accused Comey of illegally leaking classified and privileged information. So, obviously, Trump is going to accuse the government and the news media with everything that's wrong with this country. So don't expect there to be some kind of candid response or apologies about his behavior, because he sees himself as a man of action, of, not deep personal reflection or philosophical examination.
Did you at any time urge former FBI Director James Comey in any way, shape, or form to close or to back down the investigation into Michael Flynn? And also, as you look back...
No.
So he admires Vladimir Putin because the Russian leader is a man's man, tough, aggressive, and macho. And this is Trump's style. The question could be raised, however, is Comey covering his own tracks? When he responded to Donald Trump about Mike Flynn being a, quote, good guy, was he agreeing with Trump that they should probably give the guy some cover? Is Mr. Comey trying to cover his own tracks by documenting everything he said? Because, some might say, me think he doth protest too much, if this is a situation where he felt, he may have done something wrong along the way. So keep your eyes and ears open for any kind of testimony that points in that direction as well. Meanwhile, a former assistant special prosecutor for the Watergate hearings has said that this situation is the John Dean moment.
Now, you've had extensive experience at the Department of Justice and at the FBI. You've worked under presidents of both parties. What was it about that meeting that led you to determine that you needed to start putting down a written record?
A combination of things. I think the circumstances, the subject matter, and the person I was interacting with. Circumstances first, I was alone with the President of the United States, or the President-elect, soon to be President. The subject matter, I was talking about matters that touch on the FBI's core responsibility and that relate to the President-elect personally. And then the nature of the person. I was honestly concerned that he might lie about the nature of our meeting, and so I thought it really important to document.
The president is actually the head law enforcement officer in the country. He is the commander-in-chief, both for the military and law enforcement. However, here's the problem. The Department of Justice, when investigating the executive branch or any other part of government, must be independent. And that's one of the things that Comey brought up, is that he's trying to protect the integrity of the FBI, which is a part of the U.S. Justice Department, during this situation. So there's the potential constitutional crisis, folks. So when you have this kind of battle going on between the judiciary, or the FBI, or the Justice Department, and the Office of the President, it is similar in scope to what was happening during the Watergate investigations in the 1970s in the United States, which did bring down the President and the Vice President at that time. The President actually was going to be impeached and resigned, and then the Vice President also resigned because of tax evasion charges. Well, this is a situation we've got here, is that Trump has been accused of colluding with the Russians, okay? That's where this all started. And so any of his attempts to try to put a quash on that investigation could be interpreted as obstruction of justice, which is an impeachable offense. And that was part of what was going on during the Nixon administration, when he had, his Saturday Night Massacre and fired half of his cabinet. Well, there may be dissensions within the cabinet right now with the Trump administration. It remains to be seen how many of them may actually bail on him. But as I tweeted out earlier today, to somebody who read one of my articles, one of the worst things that could happen to you right now in the United States is to be appointed to the Trump administration. Talk about political baggage. So we'll see what happens here. There's also another story about CNN firing one of their hosts for some of his comments about Trump, which were considered inappropriate. So I'll let you decide on whether that's true or not, but freedom of the press is an important thing in the United States, and I will definitely be keeping an eye on that issue. This is Mark Taylor-Canfield for the MTC report, where it looks like we may be witnessing the collapse of an American presidency.
One week after Aslan called President Trump a, quote, piece of shit, quote, embarrassment to mankind on Twitter.
I was fired because of something about the way I was conducting the Russia investigation, was in some way putting pressure on him, in some way irritating him, and he decided to fire me because of that.
If you're interested in my journalism, I also have a column at the Capitol Hill Times, and you can find my blog over at Daily Kos. And please, subscribe to our channel, support us. Independent media is so important in the United States right now. Reporters Without Borders currently ranks the United States 43rd in the world in terms of press freedom. So we have a lot of work to do, and I believe that it is the obligation and duty of every editor, every publisher, every reporter, journalist, blogger, to a netizen, as Reporters Without Borders would call them, to really stand up, vocally support publicly this position of freedom of the press in the United States. We've had too many instances lately of the press being disrespected and their rights being violated, so we need to stay on this. Another issue is that Reporters Without Borders and other groups, the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press, the Committee to Protect Journalists, and other groups have joined together, and they're trying to push through some initiatives in the United Nations on protecting journalists around the world, because there are many reporters who are currently in prison, being harassed, being harmed because of their work. So journalism, when practiced correctly, can be a very valuable and respectful profession. So we need to support this voice in our democracy. So thanks a lot for supporting the channel. There are over 300 videos uploaded at this point, and some of my radio theater, audio play, Nick Savage Private Eye, that series is up there. Also, some of my music and a lot of news and hundreds of movies, hundreds of free movies for you. So please go to my YouTube channel, check it out, subscribe, and if you like what we're doing here, I wanted to let you know also that I am a musician, and so my music is available out there. I also record it under the name DJ MTC. And so a lot of the music in this video is my own. Check out my articles at the Capitol Hill Times, and I blog at Daily Kos. Check out the Jeff Santos Show, some really great progressive populist broadcasting coming out of Boston. He's currently running for the Cambridge City Council, actually, a good friend of mine. True Blue Progressive, so good program, the Jeff Santos Show. He's got a whole network that broadcasts across the country out of Boston. Also, Democracy Watch News, you can check us out on Twitter and Facebook. We're a worldwide news service, so you can hear stories, or see stories from Africa, Asia, North America, Europe, South America, the Pacific Islands. It's a very interesting news feed. And just, thanks for sticking in there and standing up for independent media. Please support groups like Reporters Without Borders. They have their World Press Freedom Index now for 2017. the rankings of all these countries around the world. You've got the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press. They're a great group. You've got the Committee to Protect Journalists, CPJ. They're good. There's Society for Professional Journalism, which could do better. But these are all groups that are supporting freedom of the press in the United States. There's a group called Free Press, actually, which is also instrumental on issues of net neutrality and other things that affect media democracy. The MTC report is one of my efforts to do that, and I want to continue to try to report on these stories in an independent way outside of the corporate bubble, from a nonpartisan, independent voice, which is me. So thank you so much for supporting us, and I want to give a thank you to The Guardian for providing also some of the video that I showed here today, and also CNN and the other news organizations that have been covering the hearings. So thanks a lot. This is Mark Taylor-Canfield for the MTC Report.
I will fight for a Medicare for all single-payer system. Second of all right? You want to talk about rationing? You got to have a rationing. They can't.
Watergate. I was on active duty then in the Air Force as a young officer, and it was a scary time